My legions are the only thing standing between your precious seven heavens and the bottomless hunger of the abyss. I did not fall into the clutches of evil. I rose to shoulder a cosmic burden. From the western gates of Elturel rode the Hell Riders, banners streaming, armor gleaming with the first light of dawn. They were the sword and shield of the city, a host of paladins, knights, and zealots sworn to defend the realm from all that crawled and conspired beyond the mortal veil. War horns howled across the fields, hooves struck like the drums of justice, the order united by oath and fury. They rode toward the tear in the world. Outside the city walls, the land was ruptured, craters smoldered with brimstone, and the portals to the hells yawned open, spitting forth infernal beasts in endless numbers. From those maws crawled devils, barbed and horned, winged and wretched. Bearded devils locked their glaives in a series of disciplined phalanx. Chain devils danced through smoke, dragging screaming victims into writhing cages. The sky darkened now, with Erinyes, angelic fiends wielding spears of radiant agony. But the Hell Riders did not flinch. They charged into blood and flame, steel, and into their nightmare. Their war cries met the infernal roar. The clash was titanic, light against the darkness. Blades met claw, hymns met howls. The land recoiled from the fury. And then the light changed. The companion, the sacred sun suspended in the sky above Elturel, pulsed once, then again. The radiance that had once repelled undead, that had shone with divine benediction, dwindled. Golden light cracked like a shell. From within, something darker stirred. The Hell Riders slowed, the sun blackened, and the companion transformed. It collapsed inward, its glow turning crimson, and then void black, a sphere of pulsing shadow crowned in arcs of hellfire lightning. The chanting of devils rose in triumphant crescendo. Above and behind the battlefield, the very air screamed. Then the chains came, not from the heavens, but from the material plane, or, more correctly, from below it. The earth beneath Elturel split open, yawning wide with a sound, as a cathedral was torn in two. From the rent in reality, a forest of infernal chains surged skyward, barbed, massive, and alive with devilish intellect. They snapped upward with unerring precision, piercing the stone foundations of the city, coiling around towers and temples, threading through walls like viper fangs through bone. The ground cracked, the sky churned. The people now ran, attempting to pray, but prayers do not halt contracts. And the devil always gets its due. Then came the horns, the air ignited with the trumpets of infernal war. From portals within the cobbled streets of Elturel erupted scores of devils. Bearded devils cleaved through paladins. Bone devils snatched the clergy from cathedral spires. Barbazu stalked the market squares with glaives that howled as they cut. Erinyes descended on wings of crimson, their swords trailing radiant blood. Fiendish warbands sowed despair through holy places, casting the banners of the Hell Riders into fire. The river Chionthar churned with flames. The temples of Tome cracked and collapsed. The citizens of Elturel, farmers, bakers, knights, and scholars were no longer citizens. They were bargaining chips, weighed in screams and ash. And above it all, the companion pulsed, bathing the city in unnatural dusk. It was no longer a beacon, it was a brand, marking the city as claimed. The chains tightened. With a great shudder, the entire city lurched. The sky above was ripped away like parchment, revealing a vastness of endless red cloud and fire. The sun was gone, the vision of the stars, gone. Elturel screamed, in the countless souls and voices of the citizens now claimed. Then it fell, dragged through the astral, through cosmic judgment. Then the city plummeted down through layers of planar existences. Wind erupted into flames. Stone now became molten lava, and screams became a deathly silence. Below, Avernus rose to meet it, as a law and as a verdict. And when Elturel crashed into the sky of hell, it didn't break. It hung, suspended by its chains above the blasted plains of Avernus like a trophy of the devil's conquest. Its buildings aflame, its people dazed, bloodied, praying to gods who no longer heard their cries. The sky above bled ash and iron. The land below howled with war. And the first city to fall in the ambition of hell was no longer part of the mortal world. It was a completed contract. A contract named Elturel. Avernus, the first layer of hell. Avernus is the scorched threshold of the 9 hells, a plane of unending warfare and dread beauty, where mortal laws unravel and only power endures. Once a realm of deceptive splendor with lush gardens and bucolic beauty crafted by Asmodeus himself, it has long since been reduced to a blasted wasteland by the incursion of the river Styx and the eternal struggle of the Blood War. The skies above Avernus are shrouded in bruised clouds that rain fire and ash. Lightning arcs in unnatural angles and meteors streak across the blasted sky before crashing into the now tortured ground. The atmosphere is heavy with the stench of brimstone and scorched metal, and the air saps the strength and will of creatures not aligned with the evil the plane reflects. The terrain is treacherous and ever-changing, with jagged mountains collapsing into bottomless ravines. Crimson plains stretch into the distance, only to break suddenly into fields of molten glass or rivers of burning tar. Massive infernal fortresses drift overhead, held aloft by baleful magic and war engines forged in layers deeper still. The landscape is riddled with the remains of ancient battles, broken siege towers, ruined war machines, and the bleached bones of angels and devils alike. A compass here is unreliable at best, a guide to death and eternal damnation at worst. The emissaries from Dis waited in the outer chamber, iron-bound scrolls clutched tightly in gauntleted hands. The air was dry, acrid, trembling with the heat of the war-forged winds outside. A groan echoed through the war-ravaged stone etchings, the agonized sound of one of the many flayed bodies that adorned the citadel's perimeter, half alive, half ash. Then the doors opened. "Enter or burn," came the voice, her voice. The trio stepped into the chamber, heads bowed. They were from Dis, the second layer, where law was measured in ink and iron. They bore questions. They sought understanding for Disparta. Inside the citadel, they found Zariel. She stood at the far end, surrounded by flame-breathing warhounds, their chains clinking as they snarled. Her leathery wings were spread, each flame barely held in check. Her blade was planted in the stone beside her throne, though her hands never strayed far from its hilt. The flail attached to her arm, always ready to strike at a disputed point of view. Zariel's eyes, white-hot, twin stars of rage and purpose, pierced them. Disparta sends a parchment. How pathetic. He does always grovel over secrets, she growled. So listen, pathetic dogs. There are things beyond your understanding, concepts that are cosmic in scale. Listen close, and you may learn what Avernus truly is. As she steps down from her throne, a wall of fire forms, a devilish mix, both a projection and an illusion of Avernus. The vision starts to form, and the first shows bloodgrass drinking from open wounds within tortured souls. Bone trees growing in clusters, their ivory limbs bearing thorned fruit that hum with malevolent energy, now forming into an almost omnipresent illusion. The wind carries whispers in languages older than mortal memory, promising power or pleading for release. I've seen travelers quickly discover that maps are unreliable here. The land shifts subtly with malicious purpose, often rearranging itself to trap or disorient. Locations of note may vanish or reappear with no warning. Navigation is possible only through keen observations, magical assistance, or infernal guidance. Even then, dread is often the truest compass. A flick of her wrist brought forth the image of the river Styx, a ribbon of black, winding like a serpent through the scarred land. The river Styx cuts a winding path across the plain, its dark waters poisonous to the mind and the soul. Touching or tasting the Styx can erase memories, personalities, or both. Although fiends are largely immune, mortals rarely survive such contact unchanged. Where the Styx flows, battles often follow. Along its banks, demons spill forth from the infinite layers of the abyss, seeking to overrun the infernal legions of Avernus in a war that has raged since time immemorial. The very air of Avernus is hostile. Flesh-stripping sandstorms sweep across the plains, and sudden gales can fling travelers into lava pits or off sheer cliffs. Insects, such as biting flies, hell wasps, and bloodthirsty sturges, patrol the skies in swarms that can obscure the sunless skies. Nuparibo, the lowest form of devil, roam in tormented herds, blind and bloated, moaning as they move in search of scraps and suffering. Survival is a challenge in Avernus. Food and water are both scarce and untrustworthy. Water, when found, is often foul-tasting or laced with toxins. Rations brought from other planes rapidly spoil or become distasteful. As the very act of living here is a constant struggle against the heat, hunger, and the slow erosion of hope, the emissaries remained still, silent. She circled them now, her voice like coals ground into steel. Avernus bears countless scars from the blood war. Pools of demonic ichor bubble up from the ground, remnants of fallen abyssal horrors. This ichor is dangerous. Any exposure can result in unpredictable and grotesque mutations known as flesh warping, transforming creatures into monstrous parodies of themselves. While ichor can be harvested and used as a potent poison, the risks are significant, and its effects are rarely stable. Though law reigns in the 9 hells, Avernus is an exception. Here, chaos and tyranny clash in ceaseless grinding warfare. Infernal hierarchs command legions of devils, building bastions and war camps that last mere months before falling to demonic siege. Demons, driven by madness and destruction, surge forward in endless waves, leaving only ruin in their wake. Avernus is where angels fall, heroes falter, and pacts are sealed in blood and fire. The plane rewards strength, punishes weakness, and remembers every scar etched into its surface. It provides a balance between chaos and law, a necessity in the cosmic balance. Its methods may be vile and insufferable to the forces of light, but none can dispute its usefulness within existence. Zariel stood tall, radiant with wrath and iron pride. The visions vanished. Only her sword remained, humming beside her. She spoke once more, voice flat and final. To walk Avernus is to witness the eternal conflict of law and chaos writ in steel, flame, and soul. She unsheathed her sword in one smooth motion, its flame reflecting in the emissaries' unreadable masks. You now have 2 choices. Either join my warbands and live, or I will strike you from existence right here and now. Choose swiftly. I have a plane to conquer. Avernus to mortals would be seen as a punishment in the traditional sense. It is not Hell's prison, however, but its proving ground. The first layer of the 9 hells serves as the crucible through which damned souls are tested, twisted, and transformed. Here, evil is given purpose. Each damned soul is a resource to be exploited, molded by torment and temptation, until it can serve the infernal order. Avernus, in particular, caters to souls gripped by wrath, ambition, pride, and the thirst for domination. Such spirits are drawn like iron to a magnet, lured by visions of power, vengeance, and fulfillment. Most mortal souls that arrive in Avernus manifest as pale, formless shades, ghostly echoes of their living selves. These petitioners become the raw clay of hell, molded by time and torment into grotesque forms suited for infernal use. Through agony, coercion, or perverse reward, they are shaped to fit the will of the devils. Some become twisted sentinels of bone and flame. Others dissolve into the landscape itself, their essence absorbed into the cursed stone and smouldering skies of Avernus. The most wretched among them are remade as lemures, bloated, mindless creatures that form the bottom rung of hell's rigid hierarchy. These pathetic forms are created and earned through unspeakable mortal wickedness. Even devotion to a lawful evil god offers no escape from this fate. A soul truly steeped in malevolence will descend to the hells, regardless of whom it once served. Devils in Avernus are dealmakers, ever seeking to expand their ranks and authority by forging infernal pacts with mortals. These contracts are more than legal arrangements. They are metaphysical bindings, written in soul ink, enforced by the structure of the multiverse itself. Such pacts are irresistible to those driven by vengeance, obsession, or hubris. A devil may offer strength to crush one's enemies, knowledge to surpass mortal limits, or immortality in service of a grand design. But every boon bears a cost, often the mortal's soul, condemned to eventual transformation into another foot soldier of hell. These infernal bargains serve a greater purpose. They fuel the front lines of the blood war. Mortals seduced by power are forged into new devils, fresh ranks for the eternal war against the abyss. Thus, every contract signed is another soldier drafted into hell's endless conflict. Deals made within Avernus are the most binding, bolstered by the plane's nexus of lawful evil energy. Devils can strike bargains more freely here than anywhere else in the multiverse. On other planes, such pacts require elaborate rituals, sacrificial offerings, or moments of cosmic alignment to carry the same binding force. At its core, Avernus is a furnace for evil desire. It tempts, transforms, and weaponizes wickedness. The battlefield writhed below her, blackened stone, split by molten veins, strewn with the torn remains of devils and demons alike. Smoke rose, with the banners of the Hell Riders gliding in the wind. Screams drifted upward, half praise, half death rattle. The front shifted again. 3 bone devils torn apart by a rock, only for a barbed whip to drag the beast down, screaming. Zariel stood upon the ridge, watching. The wind tore at her war-tattered wings. Ash clung to her skin. And still, she watched, seething. Purpose, she muttered, not to herself, but to the realm. Lightning forked behind her. Her flaming sword hissed in its sheath. As she turned, behind her, hidden in shadowed vaults of the basalt citadel, stretched a towering tapestry. 6 wide panels wrought in blood-red thread and gold fire. Each square burned with a memory of hers, not some angel's recounting, not some devil's boast, but in her truth, immortalized in infernal silk. The saga of Zariel. She stepped forward, eyes hard, jaw clenched. Once a solar of Mount Celestia, Zariel burned with a fury too great for the heavens to contain. While her peers stood idle, content to observe the cosmic carnage from afar, Zariel demanded action. To her, evil was a plague to be purged. The blood war, that eternal conflict between abyssal chaos and infernal order, raged unchecked. And so, in righteous defiance, she turned from the silver stair and descended. Zariel came to El Turel, her radiance cloaked in mortal resolve. And there she gathered an army of warriors who would follow her into the jaws of hell. She trained them not just in the art of battle, but in the conviction to stand against the endless darkness. In 1354, Dr., amid proud citizens and cheering masses, she led them from the city's gates. Her gaze locked on the third panel, the ride. She saw herself, radiant, determined, leading an army from the shining gates of El Turel, banners aloft, sunlight dancing on blades, mortals, foolish and noble, riding at her side into the gaping mouth of Avernus. Beneath banners of dawnlight and justice, her crusade pierced the veil between worlds and rode into the fire-scorched plains. But the glories of heaven do not weather well in hell. The horrors of the 9 hells broke many. When the tide of infernal might surged against them, when devils answered with pact magic, hellfire and sorcery, some of Zariel's warriors faltered. A number fled, sealing the portal behind them, their shame encompassed by the cool sting of their silence. They would later be called the Hell Riders, and though time has polished their name into nobility, the truth clings to them like shadow. Zariel, one of the few, stood until her sword fell from her hand, severed in battle. In her final breath as an angel, she ordered her most loyal general to hide her blade, to spare its corruption. Her 2 other companions, Haruman and Olanthius, refused to abandon her. All 3 were taken, bound in infernal chains, and brought before Asmodeus himself. The Lord of the 9 hells welcomed her with a smile. He praised her fury, lauded her might, honored her conviction, and then he offered her purpose, the rulership of Avernus. Bel, its warlord, would be cast down. Zariel, if she bent the knee, could wield her rage against the abyss itself, with legions of devils at her command. And so she did. Zariel fell into hell's embrace. She rose again as Archduchess of Avernus, her wings tattered but her purpose clear, to destroy the demons of the abyss in the name of infernal law. Devils, in their most basic form, are instruments of tyranny. Their essence is rigid law twisted into domination, oppression, and endless ambition. The 9 hells are their forge, and Asmodeus is their master smith. From the infernal metropolis of Nessus, the Dark Lord rules as god and tyrant, crafting a hierarchy so vast and intricate that it consumes the multiverse in its schemes. Asmodeus, supreme among devils, rules all layers of hell from the pit of Nessus. Below him dwell the archdevils, the sovereign lords and ladies of each layer. Zariel, once angel, now rules Avernus. Others, Mephistopheles, Disparta, Glacia, hold their own courts filled with courtiers, enforcers, and rivals. Devils may die outside the 9 hells and return to their lair, but within the hells, death is final. Even Asmodeus treads carefully here. Engines of war, infernal machines, and soul coins. Now, to the engines of war. Infernal machines and soul coins. Across the blasted plains of Avernus, there is a sound that never ceases, a grinding, thunderous shriek that echoes through the sulphurous winds. It is the sound of soul engines, infernal machines that thunder like heretical chariots of war, tearing across the hellscape on wheels wrought from damned iron and blasphemy, forged in the hell forges of the 9 hells, and crafted by infernal smiths under devilish command. Infernal war machines are vehicles of brutal efficiency and demonic terror. These engines of destruction are powered by something precious and vile souls. Each machine is fueled by soul coins, thick, 5-inch wide discs of infernal iron, inscribed in glowing script and bound with powerful magic that traps a mortal soul within. These coins serve as both a currency and power source in the 9 hells. To burn a soul coin is to annihilate the spirit inside, feeding its essence into the hungry maw of the machine's engine. The soul is consumed utterly, its agony echoing in the infernal chords of the machine's growl, a bone-deep rumble threaded with the wails of the damned. Infernal war machines vary in form and function. Scout skimmers and hellish chariots, used by raiding bands and messengers, slice across the dunes at blistering speed, leaving trails of acrid smoke and despair. Siege hulks and mobile fortresses, immense constructs bristling with flensing drills, soul harpoon turrets, and spiked rams, plough through enemy lines or act as rolling citadels of infernal command. All are made of infernal iron, blackened and scarred, bound in chains, blades, and sigils of binding. Smoke pours from vents shaped like screaming mouths, while burning script dances along armoured flanks. Where they pass, the land withers. Contracts combust, and the ash brands the soil. The helm of each war machine bears a soul slot, a narrow groove into which a soul coin is fed. Upon insertion, the coin clatters down into the furnace core, where the soul is incinerated to unleash its last, desperate essence, fueling miles of carnage. When its energy is spent, the coin and the soul are destroyed beyond recovery. To drive a machine is to consume life itself. Some infernal engines are bartered by devils, others are stolen by desperate mortals. All are symbols of power, terrible, cursed, and coveted. To fuel one is to erase a soul from the multiverse. Across its ash-choked expanse lie remnants of divine rebellion, infernal engineering, and mortal tragedies. The river Styx coils across Avernus. Its waters are thick, black, and writhing, imbued with a fell magic that strips identity from any who dare drink or wade within. It defies all mapping, flowing uphill, splitting into loops, vanishing into fissures only to erupt again in a geyser of screaming souls. Fiends gather along its banks like flies to a wound. The Styx is the gateway through which demons pour into Avernus from the abyss, crashing against infernal ranks in endless skirmishes. Corpse isles drift slowly downstream, each bearing the remains of ancient battles. Held aloft by colossal infernal chains, anchored deep into the skin of Avernus, the once holy city of El Turel dangles in agony. Where once the companion, its radiant second sun, bathed the land in divine light, now looms a black orb of smouldering malice, crackling with demonic lightning. The chains groan and tremble, dragging the city ever downward into damnation. Within the walls, devils stalk the ruins, feasting on panic and prayer. Churches are defiled, homes sundered, and every cry of a child becomes music to the ears of their tormentors. Avernus is littered with the debris of 1,000,000 lost wars and warfields. Hulking infernal engines, rusted chariots, shattered siege towers, and twisted limbs of demons and devils create a jagged, metallic desert. The ground here is paved with broken weapons, fused armor, and ash-clogged trenches. Oily fire seeps from deep craters, and clouds of stinging ash obscure sight and time. Echoes of battle ring through the air, phantoms reliving the moment of their final death. Scavengers, mortal and infernal, pick through the wreckage, searching for weapons, relics, or soul coins left behind in the bloodied soil. But the land itself remembers, and some war machines are not as dead as they seem. Once the prison of the five-headed dragon queen, the monument to Tiamat remains a colossal ziggurat of basalt and bone, sunk halfway into the bleeding sands. Though Tiamat is no longer bound here, the stain of her fury is eternal. Her chromatic influence scars the surrounding terrain. Red sands bubble like magma, green winds carry whispers of madness, and black ichor flows like rivers. Devout cultists gather here, drawn by prophetic dreams and the promise of draconic power. They offer blood and treasure, hoping to win favor or gain a fragment of her lingering divine wrath. A fortress of radiant alabaster buried beneath a ridge of charred bone and lost time. Once a bastion of celestial resistance, the bleeding citadel pulses with divine memory. Its walls weep crimson light, as though mourning the fall of its last angelic defenders. It is here that Zariel's sword was hidden, an artifact of immense purity that still hums with her lost grace. Only those who walk the path of selfless sacrifice can hope to find the citadel, and even fewer emerge unchanged. The citadel is less a place and more a test, one that whispers to the noblest of hearts and consumes the unworthy, a mirage of hope or damnation. The wandering emporium drifts unpredictably across Avernus, appearing only when it wishes to be found. A travelling bazaar of impossible size and exotic wares. It offers everything: infernal weaponry, holy relics, soul coins, and secrets older than time. Run by the enigmatic Mahadi, a devil of velvet voice and venomous charm, the emporium is bound by infernal contracts that forbid open violence. It is the only neutral ground in all of Avernus, where archdevils and mortal warlords might dine together over roast nightmare and aged hellwine. But nothing is free. Every deal, every dish, every whispered promise comes with a price in soul, blood, or sacrifices. Like a black star scarred with blade and fire, Zariel's command citadel soars above the plains, borne aloft by infernal engines and howling vortexes of flame. Her fortress is an abomination of spiked ramparts, siege portals, soul-ward batteries, and hell-forged landing decks. From here, she surveys the blood war, dispatching legions of devils to reinforce her lines. At its heart lies Zariel's war chamber, carved with relics of her celestial past. There, beneath a mural of her fall, she plots the extinction of chaos and the damnation of all who question her will. Sunken into a volcanic ravine, belching noxious gas, Bel's Forge is a monstrous complex of foundries and soul furnaces. Here, the fallen Archduke of Avernus, Bel, now supplanted but far from idle, breeds abominations of steel and hate. Lava flows through the slag canals, chains clatter overhead, and the air burns with brimstone and his ambition. Bel's creations include engines of war, infernal siege beasts, and soul-bound automata crafted to rend demons apart. Bel himself is ever watchful, plotting his return, to dismantle Zariel and take back his rightful place, refining his army and feeding the forges with souls too stubborn to break. The Tower of Arkan the Cruel, a death knight enthralled to Tiamat, rises on a clifftop overlooking the Styx. Surrounded by the wreckage of paladin orders and demonic siege attempts, the tower pulses with necrotic magic. Within, Arkan guards the hand of Vecna, a relic of apocalyptic power, and channels its magic into rituals meant to free his queen. He is flanked by a retinue of dragonborn zealots and undead monstrosities who obey without hesitation. Hidden beneath a blasted escarpment lies the crypt of the fallen Hell Riders, those who followed Zariel into Avernus and never returned. Carved from blackstone and ringed in rusted armor, the crypt thrums with sorrow and shame. Here lie the bones of paladins and knights who defied their celestial calling. Many became undead wardens of their own tomb, cursed to guard the site until the shame is absolved. Some whisper that their spirits weep still, calling out to the living to finish what they began. Avernus is the furnace and battlefield of the blood war where ideals are tested, where righteousness is wrung of its purity and reshaped into weapons or regrets. Every footstep grinds against bones of the forgotten. Every breath carries the weight of devil's bargains, of prayers unanswered, of glory defiled. Those who enter Avernus seeking conquest are often swallowed by it. Those who come to save another may find only ruin in their reflection. This is no place for certainty, only endurance, resolve, the strength to defy the whispers in the ash and the promise of easy power. For Avernus does not conquer with blade alone, it offers temptations and whispered bargains, a second chance that costs everything you have, and it waits, always hungry, always watching, for mortals to stumble, for angels to fall, for the light to flicker from your soul, one last time. Yet even here, in the furnace of despair, embers of resistance smoulder. In the defiance of the soul, in the courage to endure, and in the blood-streaked histories of those who dared descend, but did not break. For though Avernus is the beginning of hell's descent, it is also where the stories of redemption, ruin, rebellion, and resolve are forged anew, in flame, in steel, and in soul.